recording. Yeah, I always upload the recordings so you can access them. You can play them, you can pause. That's the advantage of technology anyway. Once you miss certain things, you can always pause, go back, play it again, and then you should be able to go over everything. Yeah, so we are beginning this session with the presentation on what we call 21st century skills. Now, the question now is, why do we bother about what we call 21st century skills? What are they in the first place? Well, when we say 21st century, I'm sure we all know what 21st century is. No. So I have some quotes here. The 20th century education, so we're talking of all the way up to 1999 or 2000. That was the 20th century. So it emphasized on compliance and conformity over creativity. So once we say this, we understand what we're talking about. In fact, if you attended university 20 or so years ago, you realize that emphasis was on compliance. Just do what the lecturer says. Just conform with what he is saying. If you are bringing your own ideas or your own thinking into the learning or whatever it is, the lecturers get, some of them even get offended. They don't see why a student should have, this is what we are teaching, or this is what we are learning. So everybody must comply. And then once you complied and you got your first class or you graduated, then that's your profession. So you enter the environment or the work environment with that profession, and you can work with that up till you retire. So if you studied accounting, you would work as an accountant, and then senior accountant and all those things until you retire in your accounting. If you studied history, maybe you found a job. So that was the whole issue of education, what education was about. But now things are changing. So now in the 21st century, what is happening is that we are now in another sort of revolution. So we have what we call if we go over history, there used to be the Industrial Revolution. It started with the Agricultural Revolution where people were into farming. Then we went on to Industrial Revolution where we started manufacturing and other things. And now we are in another revolution, this was what we call the knowledge economy, or what we call, globalization and all those things. So we're now in an environment, if I'll put it that way, where those things we used to learn and just memorize and stay in that discipline or that field, is now that things are now beginning to become more fluid. So in fact, if you study accounting these days and you are not even careful, what is happening is that computers can do it better than you. But if you give the computer all the data, the computer can do the analysis and all the things and produce the results. So probably we don't even need people to be doing high-level accounting anymore. In fact, even things that you think are not possible with computers, these days, the way things are going, gradually certain jobs are going to become defunct or are going to be replaced. We'll talk about those ones shortly. So we now have to have students who should be able to fit into this environment or this 21st century. So now we're no longer just giving information, because like lecturers used to do, you come with your notes and just read the notes, and then students will write down the notes, and then when it comes to exam time, then they write the exam. That is dead, because the information is out there anyway. In fact, when the internet started coming, we used to laugh at some lecturers because they go on the internet, go to some website, and then just copy the notes and come and read to you. So when those who are more into tech, they also go and Google them, then they'll find everything out there. They say, oh, so the lecturer just copied all these things and came to present as if it is his own, So the information is already out there. So now we need to be focusing on giving out information. But we now have what we call the 21st century skills. So you can go on to, so if we have a quote here, one of the education gurus, John Dewey, this was even way back in the 60s and 70s. He was saying that if we teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, then we rob them of tomorrow. So what he's simply saying is that we cannot continue teaching things the way we were taught, because the way we were taught was in another era. And so the children growing up are going into another era altogether. And the World Economic Forum gave out this statistic that 65% of the children who are entering primary school today, well, they finally graduate and enter into jobs that presently do not exist. So what is happening here? What we're saying is, but these days like this, just look at the jobs that are there. You can easily just see. I mean, look at Uber. How many people are driving Uber cars now? Who in 10 years ago thought of Uber or what we call these technology things? So the job market is changing. And so what we're saying is that as they are entering primary school today, the jobs that they will be doing in the next 20 or 25 years, they presently do not exist. In fact, and most of the jobs that are currently existing are going to phase out. They are just going to die out completely. We can think of jobs that have, that are dead and gone, because nobody, like, I mean, when we were kids, there used to be a secretariat school where they teach typing. You go and learn how to be a typist. And nobody these days will advertise that I want to employ a typist. That is dead and gone. So things like, and a whole lot of other jobs are getting off the scene. And so we need to equip the students with some skills. So for this presentation, we will define what the 21st century skills are. Then we'll explain why the students need these skills. Why? But the interesting thing is that we are not teaching or learning these skills in our schools. So why is that the case? And then as teachers, we should be able to apply some strategies to teach these kind of skills. And then also have to assess the skills. When you, of course, when you teach, you have to assess. And then also, how do you build your capacity of the teachers to teach 21st century skills? Now, we're not going to cover all these objectives today. We'll continue next week, like I said. And so we'll do the first part, maybe the first 3 objectives, and then we'll continue next week. So these are the things we are going to cover this morning. So what are 21st century skills? So there are several definitions. So the consortium or an organization called Assessment and Teaching of 21st Century Skills put them into 4 categories. The first is what we call ways of thinking. So creativity, innovation, critical thinking, problem solving, decision making, all those things. And what we call learning to learn. Metacognition, you should be able to learn how to learn. Or what we call lifelong learning. These days, we don't just learn one thing and we end. It's lifelong learning. I'm sure most of you, you are into that category because you realize that the way things are going, you have to continue learning. And we have creativity. But creativity and innovation are 2 terms that are normally used interchangeably, but they are really not. Of course, when we talk of creativity, people should learn to be creative. So, and then when you are creative, you can only be innovative when whatever you create has value, or if you add value to your creation. Sometimes people create things that are totally useless. I mean, you can have examples. Normally in class, I show some examples, but we don't have the time to. So there's creativity. You encourage people or students to be creative, and then what the entrepreneurs do, you now take something that has been created and you add value to it in a way that people are prepared to pay money or to pay money for it. Then we say you are innovative. So if you can be creative without being innovative because you create things that are useless and nobody is interested in them. We hardly teach creativity, or we use not to teach anything that has to do with creativity because, like I said, we're emphasizing on conformity. So just this is how we do it in this field. And so we don't expect people to come in with different ideas or other things. But then now the 21st century skills, we are looking at those things. So the way we think, the way we work, communication, collaboration, and teamwork. Again, we are not encouraging collaboration and teamwork in schools. No, what's happening is that every individual, even if you try to look at somebody's work, they'll say they are copying the person. While in actual fact, you should be sharing knowledge and progressing rather than each individual working on them by themselves. So, and the tools that we use to work. And now in the 21st century, most of these tools are the ICT tools. And then apart from these three, the way you think or the way you work, you should also be how you live in the world, the citizenship, how you participate in the communities or in society, your responsibilities, the cultural awareness and all those things. So the way you also live in the world is part of the, what we call the 21st century skills that we're looking at. So they have grouped them into these four. And then as we go along, we realize that most of this, what we'll be talking about, are actually the same thing. Because another person has 7 categories or 7 skills, but he calls them survival skills. That's Wagner. Again, it talks about critical thinking and problem solving, collaboration and leadership, agility and adaptability. So we talked about that. How agile are you? Now, these days, most of the time we have employers complaining that the students come out of the schools or the universities and they're not able to fit in the work environment because we've not taught them how to adapt. So they come and then maybe employers have to spend another time and money training them to become, to be able to adapt things that we should have done in the universities or in the schools. And then initiative and entrepreneurship, which is also very critical. People should be able to take their own initiative and do certain things. Oral and written communication is very critical these days because most of the times what we are communicating now, in fact, face-to-face communication, just like we have been having these classes, you don't see the face-to-face, the non-verbal, what we call the non-verbal communication. Because, just look at the way the person is talking or the facial expressions, the gestures and everything, all those convey a whole lot of meaning. But you are not seeing that. And all you are looking at is reading emails or reading text or listening to the person over the internet. What's happening is that you need to be effective in that, else you cannot convey specifically what information you want to convey. Even though we also have things like videos and other things that can show some level of face-to-face interaction. But we need to be very effective in communication. And then we'll talk about information that is already out there. Accessing this information and then analyzing it. Making sure that the information you are getting is the right information, is coming from the right sources, and so on. These days, some people just Google something, and the first thing that comes up, they click on the website and they start reading. And then whatever is written there, they take it as gospel truth because it's on the internet. That should not be the case. You have what we call media literacy. You should be able to look at where it is coming from, who has written this thing, how credible is the person, especially things like medical information, other things. Maybe you have you have a pain in some part of the body, so you Google and then you start reading. You can't just do that. You need to look at who is actually writing this. How do you establish the credibility of the information? So those are the skills that we need to be talking about. And curiosity. Now people should be curious. Why are certain things the way they are? Why are things working? And then your own imagination too. People talk of dreaming big and all those things. So these are things, but you realize that these are not things you can easily teach in the classroom. And so that's where one of the problems are that we'll be discussing. So there's another way of categorizing the 21st century skills. Then there's another way, definition, if you can put it that way. They call it global competence, the Asian society. So there's something called global competence because we're now in a global environment or a global world. So globalization is something that the entire world is now becoming, normally they say, a village. Because, interestingly, what's happening is that you can advertise for a job in Ghana here, and you have people applying from Sri Lanka and from India, and they will come and compete. So, and or you can also sit here and apply for a job in those countries, in India, in Canada, and other things, and go for interview and be taken. So how do you become globally competitive? If you only learn things locally, then of course you cannot survive in the global environment. And so investigate the world, should be able to recognize perspectives, communicate ideas effectively, and then take action to improve conditions. The fourth one is very critical, taking action to improve your conditions. We realize that this is something that we lack in this country a lot. Take action to improve your conditions. Now, what do we see these days? Most of the times you go to places, either the media people or whatever it is, then what you are seeing is people start complaining, oh, we don't have this, we want the government to come and do this for us, and so that should not be the case. We should always be able to take action. So you should be able to do something rather than just, and that's because our education system never, encouraged us to solve our own problems. We could do the grammar, we could do the arithmetic and all those things, but to solve the practical problems that encounter us every day, we don't do it. We have the dependency syndrome, always expecting somebody to solve our problems for us or to improve our conditions. So the 21st century, what we're talking about is that if you are encountering a problem, you have to take action. And so the students need to learn the skills or to have the skills that will encourage them to do that, or that will equip them the skills to do that. So this, what we are covering here is just what we call the various ways of defining or describing what we call 21st century skills. The last one, by what we call the applied educational systems, they talk of learning skills, literacy skills, and then life skills. It's just the same thing that we have been talking about. So we have the 4 C's. I'm sure some of you have come across things like the 4 C's or the 6 C's of education and so on. So the critical thinking is there, creativity, collaboration, communication. We've mentioned this already. So these are the learning skills, learning to collaborate or collaborating to learn. And then we have the IMT, which are the literacy skills. This is what we used to dwell too much on. We used to dwell too much on literacy. And then so you should be able to read and write. You should be able to do arithmetic. You should be able to read and reproduce historical facts, or do chemistry, or do this. So those are the ones we used to emphasize too much on. But the bulk of that is now about technology, because in most cases, there's no way you can get a job or whatever you are doing and be working without using technology of some sort. But there's now technology in almost everything. Now even drivers now you use technology. 2 days ago, Ghana launched what we call the quick response code, where now you can be buying things and paying without using cash. All you need to do is just have your QR code, somebody will scan it and transfer money into your account. So these are things that the technologies that are coming out, and that people need to know how they work and be able to use them. And then we have the flips, which are the life skills. Now how you operate in society or in the community and so on. So you are talking about the social skills, how productivity you can be, taking initiative, assuming leadership positions, and so on. And we talked about the flexibility as well. So these are just a categorization of what we call the 21st century skills. So we're saying that students can stay competitive if they have or they possess these 21st century skills. Unfortunately, we hardly teach most of these. So if we are going to explain briefly what these involve, what we have been talking about, So critical thinking involves logically assessing information to make informed decisions. So you assess information and make informed decisions. Now, people who lack critical thinking can always, you probably will not be able to operate efficiently, because especially if you're in a leadership position. You see, when you are a leader of people, you are not careful, you are not a critical thinker, you would end up getting, because somebody comes to say one thing, and then you just take that information and you begin to act on it. You haven't listened to another part, or you haven't done any critical analysis of what the person is saying. Sometimes people just are patronizing, they just want to take advantage, and then, take advantage and get the benefit in some way or the other. So if the information is coming and you are not a critical thinker, you end up messing things up, because you take decisions based on not doing a careful and critical analysis of, in fact, most of us have families, and we know sometimes your kids self, two of them can fight, and if you are not careful, to look at to critically look at what they are saying, you probably end up either punishing the wrong person and so on. So critical thinking is something that is really of necessity, and we need to begin to see how we can be teaching students to think critically. Now, creativity, I've already talked about that one, thinking and solving problems, being creative. So we don't just solve problems based on what we know or what has been done already, but you can be creative and then try to find different ways of solving problems. Of course, working together, collaboration, sometimes we do that, teamwork, but also the teams have their dynamics too. So sometimes collaboration can become a problem for some people. Communication, we've mentioned the practice of conveying ideas by using a variety of methods. So so these days, technology is helping us use email, we use telephone, and all those other ways of communicating. And then I already talked about what we call information literacy. So how are you going to, analyze the information that you are getting and determine whether this is true or not? But these days, there's a whole lot of fake news in the media. And sometimes it brings a whole lot of confusion, because even the journalists or the people who are bringing out the news, their level of information literacy is very low. So they find some information on the internet and it looks so convincing. And it's not only the entire world, but even the big media houses have fallen victim to it. The information looks so convincing and it looks credible, and then you take it and start to run with it, only to realize that it was just fake news. So we're in an era where people need to be really information literate. You should be able to take the information and then do the necessary things that will convince you that this is either credible information or it's not. No, but sometimes the media people don't do that. Maybe sometimes in a hurry to say that they are the ones who brought out the information or who brought out the news, they end up spreading fake news. And every day we come across things like that. So, and we also need to have what we call media literacy. So the media, so when we talk of media, we are looking at the things that we use in communication. So a medium could be voice, that is user either phone or internet. It could be text, it could be pictures, it could be video, animations, and all those things. So at what level of the communication should you use what medium? There's something called media richness. Something, if I need to tell a person that, okay, please go and pick something for me. I think just by using voice is enough. If I can describe the thing and the person will know. Now, but if I want to teach somebody maybe some dance moves, now if I'm going to teach you dance moves, there's no way I can use voice or I can use telephone to teach you how to make some dance moves. Because there's just no way. You need to know the right medium or the right technology to use. So in this case, I might be looking at video in the absence of face-to-face interaction. So media literacy too is very critical. So we don't need to use media just because it's there. So what is happening is that if text is enough to convey your information, you can rely on text. If you think that you need to use video or you need to use audio, voice, and so on. And so that media literacy too is very critical because it helps in the communication. And so and then of course we have technology literacy, which most of us are now struggling to, the applications that we can best use in the different areas that we encounter ourselves, things that we encounter. So which technology tools should you use? We just talked about the assignment. We said if you are using the RD model, analysis, design, development, and so on, what tools should you use at what point? And that's technology literacy. So in fact, this course is all about technology literacy, how we can use the various tools appropriately. Because the tools are all out there. There are a whole lot of them. So which one do you use at what point? And then we talked of adaptability or the flexibility aspects. You should be able to adapt to different situations or different conditions. Especially when you have cultural changes and a whole lot of other things. We should be able to be flexible. The 20th century education did not encourage flexibility. If you were in history, you knew almost nothing about maybe chemistry. You use things that are, in your life every day that have something to do with other fields or other professions, but you have no idea at all. So these days we are encouraging cross-disciplinary studies. But most universities now, you don't just stick to one discipline, but you are encouraged to take courses in other areas so that you can build in that flexibility. Taking initiative, being productive, and of course, social skills. Social skills, how do you interact with your peers or with your subordinates or with your supervisors and all that in a very social way, so that there aren't issues where, there's always conflict. But people who lack social skills, most of the times, they resort to conflict. Working with diverse groups of people. If you are not careful, you will always be having conflicting ideas. So this just explains some of the skills that we call the 21st century skills. And now, like I said, it is very clear that what we have been doing all these years, we have not been giving students these skills. Of course, the 20th century was fine. Because once you learned archaeology or you learned zoology, whichever it is, you worked with that for the rest of your life. So it was fine. But what we're saying now is that in the 21st century, if you learn archaeology, for example, and you come out and you want to work with that, probably after 4 or 5 years, things in your field would have changed so much that you will need to learn something in addition. Maybe robots would have taken over your job. We'll look at some of those things shortly. People who used to work in factories, factory floors, most of them now, they don't, no factory will employ people. If robots are there and can do the cleaning, can do the fixing, the welding, but robots are now doing almost everything. If we have time, we'll look at some of these 21st century factories. If you look at the company called Tesla, the company that makes electric cars, if you look at their factories, the factory floor has not more than 10 workers, but they are assembling cars, more than 100 a day. And that's because robots are doing all the jobs. And robots are, they can't complain. They don't go for lunch. They don't go for break, and that. So they are more efficient than human beings for jobs that just require routine things. So we're now saying, we've already mentioned some of the things already, because why do students need these skills? That's just what I'm already talking about. Computers and machines can do a whole lot of things that are routine knowledge and skills Like I'm saying, if it is welding some parts of a machine, putting a car together, doing all those things, computers are now doing them. And so if you learned a mechanic on how to fix certain things, the robot will take over your job. And so the workplace needs fewer people with only the basic skills. But we now need people with what we call higher order thinking skills. We now need, because computers, though we have what we call artificial intelligence these days, computers cannot really think. So as for pushing things here and there or cleaning floors or doing this, computers can do those ones. But as time goes on, the artificial intelligence is becoming, very sophisticated now. In fact, in the next 5 to 10 years, a whole lot of things will be done by, you even be surprised, even operating people in the hospitals. Robots are beginning to take over, because a robot that, once it is programmed and is very effective, it doesn't have feelings, it does the work perfectly. So routine things are beginning to be replaced by computers. So now we need people who can only do the higher order thinking, because we are saying that, of course, computers, even though they are very efficient, they cannot think. And so students need to have 21st century skills, because we need people to be able to have higher order thinking. And we're saying that supply and demand in a global rather than a national or local marketplace increases competition. That's what I mentioned earlier on. So if you study something and you think that, oh, if I come out, I'll get a job at maybe this place or this place, before you realize somebody from India or somebody from China has more capabilities, has learned. In fact, some people are learning languages, and then going into countries to work in there. Chinese are learning Spanish, and you go to Latin America, and some of them are occupying positions in the telecoms, and then there's insurance companies and all that, because they are preferred. So even though you are here, in fact, we have been talking about it already. Like when the oil industry was coming out, talking of local content. People should be able to employ people within. But you look around and you don't have the experts. You don't have anybody who can do that work, because it's very easy to employ somebody, to come from the US and come and work, than to now take somebody and begin to train you, take you through a whole lot of training before you can acquire the skills. And so because of that competition, we need students to be able to have these skills so that you can quickly adapt, can quickly, once you have the critical thinking and all those complex thinking skills, you should be able to critically adapt into the environment so that you stay in competition. Else, you will not survive, because there's a whole lot of competition. Of course, you also need how to learn and how to be engaged as citizens. So you can analyze items, news. You can identify what we call biases, vote in an educated. So participation as a citizen, you should be able to participate in an informed way. And so the things that we are seeing these days in the political environment, the propaganda and all that, the educated ones who have 21st century skills or the critical thinking skills will not easily be carried away by a whole lot of lies and propaganda. And that's why we're saying that you need to participate effectively as a global, so in this case, we're talking of global citizenship. So the last one, globalization makes it even more urgent for students to learn how to communicate, collaborate, and solve problems. But we're talking of, we have been talking of globalization all day, but now this pandemic has come to add to this. Nobody anticipated that there could be something, a pandemic. We know of epidemics that break out in some parts of the world. So you only hear of it. Even Ebola that we had was in West Africa here. It never got to Ghana here. So it was contained in some countries. But to get one disease that will spread the entire world, and it keeps going. And so it has now forced us back into our homes, into quarantine and all that. And yet we have to collaborate and we have to communicate. So how do we do that? And that's why we have now got all these tools that are helping us to do this. And if you don't have the skills and the ability to use this, then you are going to be left out, because it's going to be collaboration with technology tools. And if you cannot use the tools, of course, you are going to be. So technology literacy, media literacy, and all those are all part of the 21st century skills. So these are the reasons. So for these reasons, we are saying that students need to have the 21st century skills. So if I go back, it's just because computers are taking over routine jobs. So we now need people who can think more critically. And then there's competition, because supply and demand of things are no longer local. But so you'll be surprised, maybe you can advertise for a job here, and then somebody comes from Sudan or comes from South Africa, and then the person is even able to speak the local language, because the person has taken time to learn the communication and other things, can speak the local language, is very competent in what he's doing, and then it will outcompete you, the person who is just sitting locally. And so that's why we're saying that we need students to be able to be competitive, of course, and to participate as citizens as well. So the question now is, why are our students not learning these skills? Because we've been in the 21st century for 20 years now. So why are things not changing? Because if it were in the 1980s, fine, we could still maintain our way of teaching, because when you come out, your job was stable. Things were not changing that much. But there's something called the half-life of knowledge. Half-life is simply that, what we are learning today, in about some number of years, half of what we are learning is going to be useless. We need to learn again. And in fact, we are already seeing it, even within our life time here, when people were graduating in schools, maybe in the 80s, 90s, and so on, there were no computers or laptops or anything, So if you learned to read and to analyze things using only textbooks, now the textbooks, in fact, some libraries don't even stock physical textbooks anymore. Now the textbooks are now all digital. They're all online. And so if you are still looking for textbooks to read, and then because even when what we call e-books started coming out, there were some people who said, oh, they still preferred to use the physical book, because that one you can underline, you can highlight some things, you can bookmark so that you can come back later and read, and so on and so on. So they preferred the physical books. But the later editions of the books started coming out, and they were not printing them physically. They are all digital. So what do? You are forced to now go into the digital environment, even though you learned things in another way. And so the problem we have is we are still not teaching the students 21st century skills, because our education systems, we are still working mostly in what we call the transmission mode. So we just transmit knowledge, and then students go through direct instruction, textbooks, lectures, assignments, and exams. So we call that the transmission mode. So in most cases, we are still doing that. And why are we doing that? We are doing it because it's easy to teach, it's easy to assess. So if I go on to the next, so countries are shifting their focus. It often prevails for two reasons. Education systems are hard to change. In fact, for most, it's not only in education systems, but human beings generally have problems when it comes to change. Most people don't want change. People are fine if other people are changing, but for they themselves to change is very difficult. And education systems that have been established over the years, they are very, very difficult to change. And then the transmission model that we talked about, it demands less pedagogical expertise from the teachers. So what we're saying is, if you learned through the lectures, like most of us in the universities. That's the only way you can teach. But mostly the university lecturers don't know anything about pedagogy or whatever it is. What they are doing is that they are just transmitting the knowledge the way they learned it. No, most teachers have not gone through the process of what we call the constructivist model. In this case, and that's in fact the 21st century's teaching and learning skills are more towards the constructivism and the connectivism theories, in the sense that we want students to build the knowledge themselves. We want them to work collaboratively, we want them to communicate, we want them to think critically. So you cannot keep just giving them facts and then expecting them to reproduce those same facts. No, but that's what we're used to, and it's very difficult to change. So people are still stuck with that. And so because of that, even though we're talking about 21st century skills, I know maybe Ghana recently there were changes in, they tried to do changes in the curriculum and all those things. But we still have exams. And we still use those standard exams to pass the students, or for the students to move from one level to the other. Just like the WASSCE, we're using WASSCE results only to admit students into universities. Now, it doesn't matter whether you are creative or whether you're a critical thinker. If you didn't get A or B or C in something, then you don't get to proceed, to the next level of education. And we haven't been able to change that. In fact, it's very difficult to change that. I think I mentioned it some time ago. Some states in the US have started moving away from the standard ways of assessing students, the standard exams. And that's because we now want people to encourage students to be more creative and to think, normally they say outside the box. I mean, that's become a cliche now. So think outside the box, create your own things, your own knowledge and other things. But we are still stuck with exams. So even if you, the teacher, you are trying to introduce these things in your classroom, you want people to work in groups so that they can be creative or they can think critically. They have an exam to write. And that exam is mostly going to be facts. They're going to ask, define this, or what is this, or explain this. And so you'll be compelled to teach for that, because that's what they are going to use to progress to the next stage. So you might be teaching them all day. Of what we know of kids who are very smart in other ways, but drop out of school because the teaching and learning requires just the transmission, the transmission and the reproduction of knowledge. In fact, the people like the Bill Gates and other things will tell you, they dropped out of school because they couldn't fit. It's not that they were not smart enough, but just that they couldn't fit in, because they wanted to be creative, they wanted the critical thinking, and the schools are not offering that. So that's the problem we have with when it comes to the 21st century skills. So people, in fact, most students, or if I can put it that way, are beginning to learn things by themselves now. So the person can graduate as in history, but go online and learn computer programming. But I know people like that who are working now as programmers, but they didn't do computer programming in schools. They just learned things by themselves. So that's the adaptability we're talking about. So even if you can't teach the students everything, you can give them the ability to adapt and to be able to change course where the need arises. But we are saying that we are not doing that because we have systems that are not encouraging us. So through the transmission model, students have the opportunity to learn information, but typically do not have much practice applying the knowledge to new contexts. They don't have communicating it in different ways, because we're asking students to write an exam. And that's only one way of communicating. That is just putting pen on and paper. That's text. But in most cases, we hardly ask students to demonstrate something. Maybe create, do a video, or dramatize something. But so we need things like that to be able to teach the 21st century skills. but we hardly do that. And so for that matter, our students are still mostly doing the transmission mode of learning. The second barrier is that, I mean, we don't teach them the skills, like I've just mentioned, because you will not learn it if they are not explicitly taught. So we don't have a course called critical thinking. So we say, okay, today what we're going to do is innovation, or we're going to do creativity. These are not things that you can teach as subjects or as disciplines. They are things that mostly we call soft skills. They are built, I mean, they are nurtured or built by the students themselves as they engage in other activities. But because we don't teach them explicitly and we don't assess them, and so that becomes one of the barriers. We are not able to teach 21st century skills. And of course, they are difficult to assess. It's very easy to assess factual knowledge, like the transmission. So I give you the content. At the end of the day, I ask questions, and then you answer, and then you can get your certificate and other things. But how do you assess critical thinking? How do you assess media literacy? It's very difficult to assess those things. Even though we know the students need them, we are handicapped, because if we say, okay, at the end of the day, I want to see whether these students are thinking critically. There are a few things you might be able to do, but it's not likely to be that exhaustive enough for you to assess all the 21st century skills that we're talking about. So these are what we call the barriers, or the things that are preventing us from teaching the 21st, or having students to engage in 21st century teaching and learning. And of course, the standards, the standards that we expect the students to attain, those standards have been put down there, and then we only use exams as a way of assessing. And so unless you have extracurricular things that you can use to teach students these skills, but when it becomes critical, you drop all these because the students have to pass the exam anyway. And so you go back and focus on the transmission so that the students can pass the exam. And so it's not surprising that we are still producing 20th century students, and they are not fitting in the 21st century. So educators and leaders, like you people, are the ones who should be now trying to drive the change. How do we begin the process of changing these things? I know certain things are being done here and there, but there has to be a total overhaul of the entire systems. But even if there's a need to do away with exams, we should be able to do that. But if you go to talk to some people now that let's stop doing exams, you see, they'll have problems with that. So now the question now is, how do we teach these skills? Now, so because the definitions of the 21st century skills, involve things like the complex thinking and all those things. They are more demanding to teach, and then more difficult to assess. So as teachers, there are ways that countries worldwide are beginning to restructure their systems and some frameworks, to help in the development of these skills. Or attitudes necessary to succeed in the 21st century. Now, I have an article that I've put up on the platform. It's called Teaching and Learning 21st Century Skills. They have some strategies they've recommended. I've only listed them here. But if you download the article, you can look at the various steps that they have talked about. How do we teach the 21st century skills? In most cases, so these are about 9 points, but they are more than that. If you look at other, look from other sources, you realize that there are a whole lot of other things. But the critical things we should be looking at is making it relevant. So whatever you are teaching, it should be made relevant to. It doesn't matter the level of the teaching. You should try to make it relevant. So even in maths, like we used to do, geometry and all those things, If you're asking people to calculate, the angle, what is it, draw a triangle, calculate the angle of this, or you give this, we used to do at sine and cosine and those things. I mean, don't leave them just abstract. How do you relate it to real life? So let the students understand that these are not just things that we are just doing for the sake of it, but they help us to build bridges, they help us to build, and so you can even show videos of how angles and other things, if they are not done correctly, can lead to the collapse of buildings or the collapse of bridges and other things. And so it should be, so the students can see the link. So it shouldn't just be, oh, draw a rectangle or draw this and then, but because they all have, there are reasons why we teach them. But in most cases, we're teaching them in abstraction. They're just by themselves alone. And the students are not able to do that connection. See, so whatever you are doing, make it relevant. Try to, as much as possible, link it to something in real life that they can see. In that case, there's always that interest. Sometimes that even generates interest among the students. And then, or even if you ask them to draw rectangles or whatever it is, they don't necessarily have to draw it on paper. They can have sticks and other things to try to build something, and they can see it themselves. In that case, it becomes very relevant. Teaching through the discipline simply means that, it should be, so if it is history, if it is geography, if it is this, what do historians do in life? What do people who are into geography do? So if you are going to talk about the water cycle, like maybe in basic sciences, you should link it to what the people in meteorological, whatever it is, the kind of things they are using to predict the weather, so that's the discipline. So we're not just saying, oh, water cycle, the water goes through this and goes back this. No, it should be looked at through the various disciplines. Now we have what we call the higher order thinking and the lower, we have what we call the zone of proximal development for those who are into education. Somebody called Vygotsky. That's what we call higher order thinking skills. So you put the students at a level, this is their level of thinking, but you try to encourage them to think beyond their level. In this case, we're looking at not just solving the basic problems, but again, what we call thinking outside the box. Look at other ways of solving problems. And if you look at most of these cutting edge technologies now, most of them will tell you that they have to find different ways or more, efficient ways of solving problems. And in so doing, they have to come up with some technologies and other things that will help students. So the Steve Jobs and all those other guys, they developed some things, like the iPhone. When these things started coming out, people didn't even quite understand, how they worked, and that because people developed that kind of higher order. Because things that we take for granted these days, like the touch screen. When you just take your phone and then you use the finger and you start, scrolling things here and there. It used not to be like that. It was, people who decided to sit down and think beyond what we were used to. Before we could use the finger to do touch screen, there was something called a stylus. You have to use a kind of pen-like thing to put on the screen before you could draw things. And so they had to go beyond the simple thinking. And now started thinking about how do we get the human being to just use the finger, because that's much easier than always looking for, and people were always misplacing those things anyway. So that's why a finger, you can't misplace it. And so they have to sit down and think and think and think. That's what we call higher order thinking. And then come up with solutions to critical problems. Transferring of learning, just like teaching through the disciplines, what's happening is that the person should be able to now transfer what they are learning in the classroom into the real world. And we can always do that using other means of teaching apart from just the transmission. Now, I was talking about anchored instruction the other time. So to transfer, so a simple example will be like we used to do in the arithmetic classrooms. A car can travel at the speed of this, and so if you want to go from Accra to Kumasi, how long will it take to travel? That is that you can calculate and get the answer right, but you know that in real life that's not the case. And so how do you make it look such that when the student is really going to do it in real life, the knowledge that they are getting will be relevant or will be applicable in the real life? And so people come up with videos of scenarios. And so you are going from Accra to Kumasi. So you have a video of the whole, the map, the video, everything. And then the student is now calculating how long it will take to with all the obstacles and all the other things, the real things in place. So in that case, when you now come into the real world, it's just like how pilots and other people train. They train using simulators, which are just exactly like the plane itself that they are flying. Because you can't teach, unlike driving, where you can come on the road and make mistakes, and stop here and there. You cannot teach a pilot, to fly an airplane by just going into the plane and taking off. So when you make mistakes, you know what will happen. So simulations are a good way of teaching, of getting students to be able to transfer what they've learned in the classroom into real life. And we talked about metacognition, learning to learn. So it's not just learning per se, but you should learn how to learn. What we call metacognition. How do you learn? We talked of learning styles the last time. People should know their preferred learning styles, and then you should know how best to learn certain things. And where at what point do you learn them? So if I've seen, sometimes you see certain things happening, and then you start asking, oh, how do they do this? How do they do this? It's not something that is beyond anybody. You can equally learn it, but how do you now learn it? So you need to now learn how to learn. So we talk of metacognition and other things. So teamwork, exploit technology, of course, that is and then foster creativity. So these are some things that we need to be applying if we really want to begin to teach 21st century skills, or want our students to possess those skills so that they can perform better in the 21st century. So the skills that you as a teacher, you need to possess to be able to, I've got this graphic here, I think I picked it from Educators Technology, yeah. Yes, so now the things that you can do, or the things that as an educator or a teacher, you should be able to use the technology tools. And so a course like this, we should be learning how to use these tools. But there are 9 skills that you as a teacher should possess. You should be able to record and edit audio clips. So audio, that is just voice. So you can record your voice. In fact, we used to have radio lessons where teachers will record and then they will play it over the radio and students will gather around and listen. There are some technology applications for that. But most of these things are online things. When you go in there, they will say, create an account for free. You can use it, just the basic things. Most of the time, if you now want to do advanced things, then you have to pay. But to be able to record audio, record video, so you should be able to record video clips. Right, annotate this. Yeah. So video content. I know this is mostly about. If I ask people to record video and edit it now, you need, of course, to take some courses here and there. But as a teacher, if you are really, interested in harnessing all these technologies, you can take your time and learn them. They are not beyond You're not beyond anybody, you know. So you can, in fact, there's YouTube editor and all these other tools that you can use to record a video and edit it. Edit in the sense that you can, you know, either speed it up, slow it down, cut off certain things, and so on. You know, you can create infographics or posters, just like this one. This one is what we call an infographic. You know, so you have graphics and text and other things. Then we have what we call the personal learning networks. So you can have a Facebook account, you have a Twitter account. I'm sure mostly, I mean, I'm sure some of you might have been using Google Classroom and other things. So you should create this, and then you should, okay. You should be able to use blogs and wikis. In fact, for this class, towards the end, we'll create a blog, each one of us will create a blog. We'll go to blogger.com and create a blog. It's free. You know, to create a blog is very easy. Just give your blog a title, and then you can start blogging, and then you can share it with your students. You know, so blogs, and then we've done Google Docs, and we haven't. No, we haven't. Okay, but we'll create what we call a Google Drive account. I'm sure most of you have Gmail accounts, so you can easily go to Google Drive and create Google Docs. Google Docs is for collaboration, you know, collaborative works. There are other things as well for presentation. In fact, when it comes to presentations, it's not only PowerPoint that we can use. You can use other things like Prezi and those ones. Then the digital portfolios that we have been talking about. So you should be able to create digital portfolios, or let your students create digital portfolios for assessment. So a digital portfolio simply is an online, so you can go online, create your account, and then, like I talked about Padlet and other things the last time, you just begin putting your things there. So if you write an assignment, you can post the assignment there. If you record a video, you can post the video there. You know, at the end of the day, it becomes a portfolio of all your digital content. Then we can have other technology that we use to share web resources. You know, just something called bookmarking. If you are on the internet and you find something that is, you find a website that is interesting, you just bookmark it. Bookmark means you want to be able to come back to it. You see, when you are, let me just quickly, for the benefit of, people who are not, this is slow down again. All right, so. Okay, so here, if I'm on the internet, I have this. Let me clean these ones. Yeah, okay. So if I go onto any website, so maybe Yahoo. Okay, so I'm just trying to go onto a website, yahoo.com. Okay. All right, so okay, Yahoo here. So I open a website like this. Now, so this is my first time of coming here. Now, I go to, let's say, maybe I'm in finance. So I want to see something about, all right, okay, amazing something. So this is, so I open this. Okay, so this is a bit slow here. Okay, so this is a website I've opened, or I'm opening here. Why is it taking so long to? Oh, it's not coming. All right, so here, okay. Now, okay, so I've got this information on this website here. Now, when I finish reading it, now it's something that is interesting. So I would want to come back to it another time. Now, what do I do? Because I can't remember, that's the, notice that that's the URL up there. That is, yeah, so all this, copy. So this would be, where are we? Okay, let me delete these ones. So that's the whole, to come back to this website, I need to be able to remember this and type it. I mean, that it doesn't make sense that you have to type this one to come back to, because at a future date, I want to come back here. So what we do is we do what we call bookmarking. So you bookmark this, and then the next time you need it, you can just come to it. In fact, so if I'm in Chrome, for example, but I already have some bookmarks here, so you can just drag it. You see, so here, if you just drag it and put it on the, let me put it here. Will it fit here? Oh, it's not. But in fact, you can create a folder and then put, so all these that I have here are sites that I have bookmarked. Sometimes maybe by the time you come back to them, they might have, the site may no longer exist or whatever it is, but there are some interesting things that you want to be able to come back, anytime you need them. And so you can bookmark them. You don't have to remember the web address to type it in anytime. And so there are these applications that will let you bookmark the sites and then share them. So if I come across something that is interesting and I want to show my students, I can just bookmark the sites and then share it with my students, or share it with the students or with your other colleagues. And so we call them social, but they're more like social media, but because you can bookmark and share, then we have, we can call it social media if you want, but they are those sites. They are not the sites, the typical sites that like Facebook, where you put in, comments and all those other things. But these are sites that can help you to share. So if you look at Scoopit, for example, EduClipper, Digo, and these ones, you go in there and people have bookmarked several sites. And you can also create your account and be bookmarking your site. If we look at Scoopit, it should be ending here now. So I'm going to, this group, okay, let me see where we are. Content curation. So it's called content curation tool. So Scoopit, okay. It says research and publish the best content for individuals, for businesses, sign up for free, okay. 8 million curators. So there, of course, you need to create an account, log in, and so when you anytime you find a website that you need, you just put it in there. And so people have created several, and it's one single platform. So anytime I come here, I can get all the websites I want to access. I can get all the other resources too, and then you can share it with students. It's just like the digital portfolio that we're talking about. And then, of course, you can do assessments like digital quizzes and assignments and other things. So these are the skills that, as a 21st century educator, you should try to possess or you should be able to use, especially creating the interactive content, with videos and other things, creating infographics. So as you move on from this, you can look at this graphic and try to see whether you can acquire these skills. Of course, this class will not give us that time to acquire all these skills by ourselves, but we have started using some of them already. And so, like I said, of course, some of them you yourselves, these are called personal learning networks. So PLNs. So you can use Twitter as a learning network. You can use Facebook. You can use LinkedIn. There's LinkedIn. That's a very efficient tool there you can use for creating learning networks. And then, of course, I talked about blogs. You can also create blogs as well, creating presentations and all these ones. But after you've done all these, you will need the learning management system, the platform where you can put them all for your students to access, and where you can also assess your students and all those other things. And so before we end, so there are some I've just put a few here. Professional development resource for teachers. These are various websites where you can go in, and then teachers have created resources already. But there are lesson plans, there are videos, there are any field that you want. You can, let's look at TED-Ed, for example. So there's one called TeacherTube. It's just like YouTube, but YouTube for teachers and by teachers. And you have what? So TED Ed, for example, it says what? Discover, create. So discover lessons, video-based lessons. So any subject that you want. So you can pick, of course, most of them are oriented towards US and other things. But if you are looking at things that have to do with talk of psychology, can you solve, at least, but these are mostly at the lower levels. Let me see. Electoral College explains. So these are videos that teachers have created. And so you can look through them. If one will work for you, you can simply take it, and use it in your classroom. Or you can also create your own. You can also create your own video lesson plan. It will give you opportunity to do that. So you can record your video and even put it on YouTube and other things. And they have support here where you can, if you have issues, you can. So these resources are out there and they help teachers to, so there's TeacherTube, which is again, like YouTube for teachers, Resilient Educator, teachers pay teachers. So this one, as a teacher, you can create lesson plans, other things, put them out there. If anybody wants, the person can pay you something small and use it. So these are all good resources. In fact, there are thousands and thousands of them. These are just a few examples. But as a teacher, we're talking of lifelong learning or learning to learn. If you really want to learn something, then you can go onto these platforms and then, learn them by yourselves. And we are saying that we should try to acquire these skills, before you can become, so that as time goes on, even if the normal teaching in the classroom is not changing, you, the teacher, can, try to bring in some motivation or some interesting ways of getting students. I know, of course, even at the lower levels these days, because when COVID came, in fact, I was surprised when some of the basic schools, even private schools, especially the private schools, I was surprised the kind of resources they were using to keep their students engaged, throughout the lockdown and also all those other things. Of course, the less endowed schools, that's a different story, but for schools that are able to access the internet and access web-based resources, all these are things that you can use, to help in what we call it 21st century skills. So let me wind down on this one. So is there any question? Does anybody have a question or a comment on 21st century skills? So far what we have just been talking about is that, we are now in a global village, if I put it that way, what we call a knowledge economy. So in the knowledge economy, it's now higher order thinking and knowledge that is required to run these economies and no longer routine things. In fact, you go into, like, if you look at the statistics, when agricultural revolution started, almost 95% of the world's population were engaged in agriculture. The people who are into farming and other things. But a lot of people are still in agriculture anyway. But as time went on, industries, machinery came in, and now in some countries, it's less than 5% or even 3% of people who are engaged in agriculture, because one person can, with the help of the machinery, can farm thousands of acres of land, something that you needed 10,000 people to do in maybe the 18th century. Now, one or two people can do that, because you just program the machine and sit down, and the machine can do all the plowing, do the sowing, the harvesting and all that. So we realize that things are changing, and now we move from the agriculture, the industrial revolution, now to the knowledge economy or the information-based economy, where everything mostly is now working with technology. And so a whole lot of people are getting redundant now, because you learned things that people are no longer interested in using humans to, because machines can do it much better and more efficiently. And so what we're saying is that if you are into routine things, you know that those will be taken over by machines. And so we need to start learning higher order thinking, higher level of thinking, because machines for now, we are saying that they can't think. Machines are good at crunching figures or doing things efficiently, but they cannot think. You can't distinguish between, so if, because we put everything in context as a human being. If I just see you, by merely look at you, in most cases, I can make a judgment. Like one psychology professor did a research, he walks into the campus, looking shabbily dressed, sweating all over the place, and he's asking the student to show him where he can go and eat. And of course, the places to eat on campus have their levels. People know of the Bush Canteen and all those things. So, I mean, that's where most of the students were pointing him to go to Bush Canteen. When he went back and then, changed clothes, dressed nicely in his car, and came back to the same campus, asking where to go and eat. They were now pointing him towards the higher level places. So in this case, what's happening is that nothing has changed, but it's just that the human being, if it were a computer will not be able to tell. If you type in, show me restaurants on campus, the computer will just simply tell you, or it can give you options. But you go and ask a person, and the person looks at you first and is able to make some judgment, about you. So we're saying that computers are not able to do that. But as time goes on, there's something called artificial intelligence. Computers are beginning to think now, but there are some programs now that can diagnose diseases based on what you tell them. So you tell them your problem, and then based on a whole lot of data that they've captured and stored, they are able to link all those things and then diagnose your illness and prescribe medicine for you. And most of the time they are right, because that's the information they're using from several sources. So artificial intelligence is becoming a reality. And so what we're saying is we now need people who are going to be above routine things. And that's why we're talking about 21st century skills. So before we end here, so now next week we would talk of a few more things about 21st century teaching and learning. But what I want us to do is to spend the rest, maybe the remaining 20 or so minutes. So I'm going to walk you through, those of you who have created your Moodle platforms, that's fine. We are now going to begin using the platform the way it should be. So we're going to look at how you can create user accounts and how you can create a course platform and how you can enroll users in the course. So we'll come later to talk about what to put inside the course. But for now, we're going to look at putting users in your account. So let me just walk you through that. So let me go back to our, our learning management system. And so, okay. So let me go back to, okay, so in most cases, let me log out first. So when you come to your learning management system or your site, this is the home page or the front page. Of course, you should have had an account since you created. And once you created the account, you are the administrator of the account. So anytime you are logging into another person's account, you are probably a student. So this is what you see. So you have provided either your email or username and your password, and then you log in. So if you log in, it brings you, depending on how the settings are, it can bring you to a place like this. But the best thing to do is, this is the dashboard. So you call this the dashboard. So this is where you will land when you log in as the administrator of your course, of your platform. And you have, now in your case, you are not going to have most of these because I've already created certain things here. So what you will see, if you are not seeing this, you need to click on, if you go to the left, you click on the dashboard, and then you would have this. So what we want to do is now, the first thing to do is to add users to our platform. So we're going to add a user. So here, the first thing to do is, if you scroll to the left and you go all the way down, you will see site administration. So let me just annotate this. Yeah, down at the bottom there is site administration. So that's where all the administration, if I put it that way, of the site can take place. So administration means you can add things, you can subtract things, you can do a whole lot of things. Now, the other things you see, these are things you can customize. So let's not worry about these ones. These are what we call blocks. You can customize them later. You know. But for now, if I go to the site administration, so what I would expect everyone to be able to do at the end of this one is that you should be able to add users to your account. And so if you go to site administration, this is what you see. You've already seen some of this before. So you have the site administration, users, courses, grades, plugins, appearance, server. All these are a whole lot of things. We don't need to worry ourselves too much about this for now. So, but with the administration tool, you can see things, services, feedback, competencies, and all that. So here, again, yeah, okay. So all this, let's not worry about all this. Some of these are a bit technical, so we don't need to worry about these ones. But the next tab after site administration is the users. So if you click on users, now this is what you have. So what we're going to, okay. So what we're going to do is to add a new user. So if you're following what we're doing here, we're adding a new user to the, not a course, but to the account or the platform. So what we're saying here is that Moodle is like, we have a whole, if I can draw something just on the screen here. So let's say Moodle is, if I create my account in Moodle, that's the entire account. So we call this Moodle. And then within the account, we can create users. So the users are, I'll just use lines to represent the users. And then we can also create courses. So the course is now, so courses are within the account. You see, so I can have the first course, okay, 1 and 2, if I'll do it this way. So the users are in the account, they can log in because they are here, but if you don't put them in the course, they will not see the course or they will not appear in the course. So it's just like going into a school and going into a class. You can be a student in the school, but if you are not put in a class or if you don't belong in a class, you cannot go in there. So we're going to create users for now, and these users will be in the accounts. Now, next week, what we'll do is that we'll create the course, and then we can enroll the users into the course. So I can decide to enroll maybe just 2 or 3 users, and then leave the others. So you might be in the platform, but you cannot access maybe course 1. I can decide to put these ones in course 2. But we're just going to create, for now, we're going to create 1 course. Now, some of you can decide to create a second course, no problem. But so on the platform, we're going to add users generally to the platform so that they can log in. When they log in, they can't do much because we have not put them in a course. And once you are not put in the course, if you log in, that's fine. You can be inside there, but you cannot access a course. You need to be enrolled in the course. So the exercise for today is to create a user. And it's very simple. I mean, as we go along, we realize that these are very straightforward. So if it says accounts, so these are the user accounts. You can look at the list of your users. That's if you have users in there. Bulk user actions, oh, not worry too much about this. But we have here, add a new user. So the 2 things we're going to be looking at is add a new user. So annotate, add a new user, and then maybe upload users. You see, so add a new user means you are going to add one person. So they are going to add one person to the account. Now, but if you have 20 or 30 people, you cannot be doing that individually, one after the other. You can put all of them in a single file and just upload. And so that's what we call upload users. So we're going to look at this, and then next week we'll look at how to upload users. So once you've created your Moodle platform, come to site administration. Let me clean this once. Okay. The eraser. Okay, so let me clean. Yeah, so you've logged in, come all the way down site administration, and this is what you will see. So you have site administration, users, courses, and so on. And so we're saying that go to users, and then if you click on add a new user, the screen that opens gives you this opportunity to add your user. So you see here, now username is what you will type in to access the course. For this course, we are using email. So when they ask for your username, you put the email. So I just put let me use my Yahoo at yahoo.com. It's easier to have the email so that you don't forget, because once it's your email, it's your email. Forget about this. We'll leave it as manual account. Suspend account. You can also have this in the sense that if you don't want the user to be able to do anything on the platform, you can suspend the person. And then here, generate password and notify user. So here, what I'll do is that if you select this, the system will automatically generate a password when you finish, and it will send the password to the person. That's the person whose email is here. Now, I normally don't do that. What I will do is that, so I don't select this, but I click here to enter the password. So I was using ABC123 as the default password for everybody. So I type it here as password. If you click on this I here, now you can see the password. So it's better to keep it open. So I've put my username. I haven't changed anything. Then I've put the password. So the person who is now going to log in is going to use this username and this password. But you see here that there's something called forced password change. So what it means is that when you are logging into the system with ABC123, the system will ask you to change the password because it's forcing you to change it, because we don't want people to be using the default password. So you have to select this. So the user will be forced to change the password. And now you can put the person's details here, your first name, your surname. So I'm just putting my information there. And then the email, the same as your, now, so email, so these are the required things. So your username mostly is not too required, but these three main things. So if you put your email address, now automatically, even if you don't provide your username, it will automatically assign the email address to your username. So the critical things you need are the username, let's have it there, your first name, last name, and then your email address. So this, not you, but the person's whose account you are creating. So if you know somebody, you can start using you can use the person as, or you can create your own email, a second email, and then try to create the user for your platform. Now at this point, there are a whole lot of other things, but they are mostly default, so we don't worry about them. No. Your profile, city, town, these are really not necessary. Country is already by default, it's in Ghana here. Server, time, zone, description. We don't need all this. Now, we can have a picture for the user. So as you go now, you see that you have here, it says picture. We don't have a picture. Okay, so let me see. So if you have a picture on your desktop, you can just drag and drop it here. Else, you go to this icon here that says add picture. So you click on it and you get this interface, says choose file. About if you've uploaded pictures on the internet before, this is, and then wherever you saved your picture, you can pick it. Let me see whether I have any picture here. I don't know whether these are not, no. Anyway, but that's how you do to get, oh, there's something called Gate, okay. Gate, but you can give it a name if you want, but it doesn't to upload. Now, because it's the account of a person, oh, okay, this is just like it should be a profile picture. I mean, it should be the person's face, just like a passport picture, because you cannot use a flower or a car or whatever it is for your profile picture. So the user picture, you just browse, select. You should have saved your picture on the platform, I mean, on your desktop or on your phone. If you can just use your phone camera to take your picture. It's just like how we upload pictures in today. Now, there are other things, again, we don't need these ones. Additional names, interests, optional things. Now, things, if you have a website, or all these ones are all defaults that we don't need. So at the bottom, you simply say create user. So this process creates a user in your account. And just like I have 47 users here. And the moment you do that, then the user appears here. So the name of the person, the email address, now I have country and all those other things. So all your users will begin appearing here. So all these are users in my account. So each of you, later on, will put in everyone else in the class. So if you have your platform, all the other participants in this course will become students on your platform. And so we're going to do that for everybody. So the exercise is for you to create just one user. And then later on, we'll upload, the group of users. And so this where you can get a user onto your site. So it's simply going down to site administration and then going to users, and then third one, add new user, and then put in the information. So here, what I'm saying is that suspend account, no, generate a password, no, but click here to enter the password. It can be any password that you choose, it doesn't matter. But you need to get the person to change the password, because we normally don't want the default passwords. So put the person's first name, surname, and then that is it. You don't even need to worry about the picture. And then you just say create user. So once you do that, you've created a user in the course. So the exercise for this is for you to, and for those of you who still haven't changed this, now you would see, for some of you, you would only see, let me go in here. It says what, forgotten, where am I? Yeah, I should go to log in here. I'm just trying to, I'm using the, okay. All right, so here, let me see. So we'll come to create courses, and this is where you create the course. If I go to our discussion here, where are we? Yeah, paste the link to your Moodle Cloud here, okay. All right, so, okay, so Anna Blankson. Yeah, so your site looks like this. Okay, good. So you have changed yours. So Anna Blankson's classroom, this is what I expect. So everyone should be able to, Jemima, let me see. Have you changed yours? Jemima has changed hers, okay. Yes. So we expect that every, so we expect all of you to have at least, so when I look at the title on your, it shouldn't just be new Moodle site, so Like Edward, have you changed yours? So yeah, so let's see. Yeah, okay, Edward has changed his. Yeah, that's good. It appears people are really into Grace. Okay, yeah, so yours is still saying my new Moodle site. So this, you have to change this to your name. And you do that again, still at site administration. Okay, leave here. I didn't save in there. Now you also notice that there's a navigation at the top there. So you can always use this to go back to the site administration or to your dashboard. So site administration here, if you scroll all the way down, you can come and see front page. So the front page, and we have what we call front page settings. So here, click on this, and then this is where the site name is. So change this. So this will be my new Moodle site. You change this to your name. Right, it's better to use your name so that you can always identify whose site it is. And then there's also a short name. The short name is the one that appears at when you log in. Your short name here. So what I've written here as a short name is what appears at the top left there. And that you can always click on that to get back to the home page or the main page of the site. So if you leave it blank, it will just be blank, but it will be nice to, it says a single word just for the site short name. So you can just use your surname or your first name in there. So for this, change this to your name. So you can add something. You can add your learning platform or your learning site, but at least it should be your name. We don't want pseudonyms or nicknames and other things. We want something that will identify you as the site belongs to you. So your exercise for this week is to change the site of the name of your site. So let me end this one. Change the name of your site here. It shouldn't be my new Moodle site. Should possess your name. You can even just say change this and then leave this as, so maybe Kofi's Moodle site or Kofi and Sons Moodle site. But at least it should be your name. And then you will log in, because since you are the one who created it, you should be able to. Now, if I try to log into this Grace, yeah, okay. If I try to log, I don't have an account here, so I can't log in anyway. I can't log into this. But if you create an account for me, then I can log in. And that's what we'll be doing eventually. But for now, so simply change this to your name, and then once you do that, scroll down, forget about all these other things, and then just save. Now remember, we are using a free version. So the free version of the Moodle, annotates. The free version, it doesn't function totally, even though it's supposed to. Certain things have been purposefully left out. So that if you now want to do more advanced things, you will be compelled to pay. But for now, we are just using the free version. So sometimes you might look at these things and make some changes, but they will not respond the way they should because you are using a free version. But leave all these, don't touch these ones or anything, and then just save. So once you save the changes, then you will have created you will have changed the name of your site. And then again, still coming back to the site administration, we will now create a user by going to the user here and then adding a new user. So next week, what we'll do is that I'll have a list of everyone in this class, and then I'll save it as a text file, and then we'll upload it. So I'll give everybody a list. So once you upload, what it means is that everyone in this class can log into your site. So look at upload users next week. But for this week, this is the exercise we have to do for the rest of the week. It's pretty straightforward. Now we're going slowly so that people will have their time to, as I'm saying, I don't want you to finish this course without knowing how to use a learning management system. You wouldn't have, I will assume that you have not learned anything at all. No. If you have completed this course and you cannot use a learning management system to teach, then you have really not taken this course. No, we expect that. So have your platform. Now, I'm sure maybe, probably some of you are in institutions which have installed Moodle already. I mean, if not, I mean, if you are a decision maker, or if you are, maybe those of you who are head teachers or whatever, you should begin looking at that. You know, even if you don't have a website, if you don't have a website, now if you have a Moodle Cloud, now if you have a website, what it means is that you have purchased a server. So in that case, you can install Moodle on your server. Now, in that case, it's going to be free. You download Moodle and install it. But if you don't have a website for your school, but you still want to use Moodle, you can simply pay, to these people, Moodle Cloud, and then they will allow you to create a platform, no longer the free version, because the free one is, but if you don't use the free one for some time, they will delete it. So what's happening is that if you pay some amount, depending on the number of users you have, if you have 100 users, you pay this. The exchange is what, $183 US dollars a year. Then to have mini, small, medium, if you can even go beyond this. Then what is happening is that they'll create, or they will allow you, they'll give you an account, you can create your platform, create your courses, and run it very well, just like, any other Moodle site. But some people opt for this so that you avoid the technology things. If you are really not, if you don't have people who are into technology and can install the thing and be updating it and maintaining it, it's easier to just pay the money and then they will do everything for you. But if there's a small hitch here, you send them a notice or a request for support. Within minutes, they'll support you and they'll work things out for you. But if you install it yourself and you're having issues, you have to struggle and sort it out yourself. So sometimes it's easier to just use the cloud. Just pay and everything is there for you. So you don't necessarily have to have, even if your school doesn't have a website, you can still find ways of using Moodle to teach. But if you are lucky, you have your students are below 50, because the free one has a maximum of 50 users. So if you are dealing with students who are not up to 50, you can use the free version. So what we are saying is that you should be able to have a site like this. And those of you who are more into technology, you can change the appearance, and then it doesn't need to look like this. You can have, there's something called themes. You can change the theme and it will look differently. Realize that all of us are creating the same interface. You can decide to change your theme. So what we are using is called Boost. This is how this one looks like. You can change it to look like this. That's the classic, or the default Moodle Cloud theme. Now this is all we can do with the free version. If you were to pay for it, there are a whole lot of other very nice looking themes. You can customize the colors and all those other things. But we don't need to get there. For now, we just want to look at the functionality. And then later on, if you want to do whatever you want to do, then you can. So what we are doing is still going back to site administration. And those of you who would want to be a bit more adventurous, after you've created at least a user, after you've added a user, you can go on and create a course. So you can add a new course. But I won't go into this now. I don't want to overload people with, for those of you who are more tech, you can be moving forward, it doesn't matter. But for now, I want, so if during the week, if you are trying this and you have any challenge, you can just send me a message. You can either email or you can even call. Sometimes you call and I don't pick, maybe you can send a text message and then I can walk you through how to go about it. So if you are not that tech savvy, don't worry. We'll still get everybody on board. So those of you who have not done that yet, go to Moodle Cloud and create your free account. And then you should end up with something like this. And then log in, go through the process at site administration and change this to your name. And then add a user, just like we've done. So go to site administration here, and then scroll down to front page, change the new Moodle site to your name. Now, from there, you can always go back to site administration. Okay, go to users, and then add one user. So the exercise for this week is simply to add one user. Okay, our time is up. Okay, so let me just now wrap up by looking at the assignment. So here, yeah, so those of you who have not submitted yet, you can still go ahead and submit the assignment. It said it was due yesterday. So, yeah, okay. So 15 people have submitted. Okay, that's fine. I don't even know the exact number of people in this class anyway, so 15 people have submitted. So, oh, is it this? Yeah, okay. Now, this is not really the number of participants. We are not up to 31. So we'll be grading. So when they, let me go back here. Where am I? Okay. So this is the platform that I'm in as, so yeah, so during the course of the week, when your assignments are graded or when they are marked, now if you come back and you click on it, you would see something like this. Okay, it says submitted for grading, not marked yet. Okay, so you see if it is marked, then you see that it has been marked, and then your grade will be there. It's marked by who and so on, and there'll be comments and other things. I'll be showing that subsequently. So when it's finished, when the marking is done, you'll get an email. Now, an email will send to you that the assignment you submitted has been graded. And so you can now come back and look at. And the important thing is to look at the feedback comments. Because what's happening is that we give comments so that it will help you to improve on what you have submitted. Or if you get 100%, of course, you wouldn't have any comments. So the only comment will be that it's excellent. That's all. But places where you've left out certain things, we try to give comments for all that. So those of you who have not submitted yet, you can still go ahead and submit. But like I was saying, the first one is, because these are all contributing towards your final grade. So you need to take them seriously. Subsequently, if you become late, what's happening is you begin losing some marks. I think every day you are late, you lose about 10 marks or so. So by the time you are 10 days late, then you are getting 0. You can still submit, but you will get 0 anyway. So try to submit here. Next week, what we will do is, so next week we will begin. Those of you who have not tried the quiz, you can try it and see. Next week we'll have a quiz. We have a quiz running for the whole week. Normally it's on for the whole week, so you have the time to take it. But just like any other test, you cannot open it, look at the questions, close it, and then come back and do it another time. Once you open it and see the questions, the system is going to record that you have done it. So if you just close it without answering any question, you get 0. So you should be ready to take the quiz before you open it. No. So it's just like a test. You can't open it and then see the questions and come back another time. And we'll be doing another discussion too. So this, like I said, at the end of the course, you should have a platform yourself that would have added all these things. So you would learn how to post assignment, how to post a quiz. You create your own questions and post the quiz, and students can answer. You create discussion forums where students can introduce themselves and do discussions, and I will upload content and all that. So that's so moving forward, we'll be cutting down on the presentations and the PowerPoint and be doing more of the activities on the platform. And so, like I said, at the end of it, you need to showcase as your platform. So tell us, I mean, you share your screen and walk us through what you've done. And then you'll be awarded or you'll be given marks for that. So bear that in mind. We're not just doing it for doing it sake. In fact, if you participate in all these activities and you don't even write the final exam, chances are that you can still pass the course. Because I don't, even though I will submit questions and they will mark and other things. I normally run into problems with some of the people, but you know, that's the way I look at it. Now we are taking courses like this to produce something and not necessarily to write an exam. I mean, there's no point. It's just like any other activity that you want to engage in that involves, we call this the kinesthetic approach to learning, producing something. Or even driving. I mean, let's say you want to learn driving. You can go to a driving school and do the theory, right? And you know all the road signs, everything. You can write the theory exam and pass it. But if you sit in the car and then move onto the road, that's where you now realize that you don't know driving at all. Even though you might have passed, the driving theory. It's the same thing here. We don't want you to only know how the technology works and explain it. Because we're good at explaining things. We can always explain things, but we want you to use it. And then the best way is to also be able to teach somebody. The last time we were looking at, at the end of it all, you should also be able to teach somebody to set up a Moodle platform and deliver courses. And once you get to that point, then, then you would know that at least you can call yourself somebody who is using technology in your instruction. So okay, let's begin. Let me stop here now. The time is up. I'm recording this, yeah, so I'll upload this. So if you missed anything, you can still go back and walk through what you've done, and then you can set up your Moodle platform. Okay, any question? So let me now open it. If you have any question, raise your hand or just unmute your microphone and ask, or any contribution. So some of you have other classes. Yes.
I feel at this part of our world, Africa and Ghana to be precise, where the ministry comes out with a plan, implementations, and the GS staff, we execute the plan implementations.
Yeah.
All that we are learning today, I don't see it to be a reality now because the governmental policies determine what we should carry out now.
Yeah, I know, but see, what's happening is that we are taking it that some of you will find yourself in that position, the policy making positions. So when you are coming out with the guidelines and all those other things, you should bear this in mind. So, and we don't expect the change to be radical at once. We expect it, even in advanced countries where, like I've been saying, where the technologies are there and, there is still that level of resistance. People still want to follow the standards and the norms. But it's increasingly getting clear because you ask employers, people who interview students to employ in their, what's happening is that you see, we are still stuck with the grammar style of education. I was surprised when somebody was saying that, universities are not training people for jobs, but you are training the person so that, the person can work or the person is supposed to. It doesn't make sense that you set up a university and then you are training people And you are telling me that you are not training them for the job market, but you are training them to think and they should be able to. That's not that. I think that's 20th century. We are now in the 21st century. So we end up, we end up training students who come out and they go on, in fact, even the confidence. But I've sat in several interviews to employ people, and when the students walk in on paper, they are so good. I mean, you see A's and first class and other things. But the moment they walk into the interview, even the confidence is not there. The confidence to even just express themselves. And why is it not there? Because we don't, all throughout their education, we've never even asked them to stand in front of a class and make a presentation. You see, so they have not built that confidence. You see, and so they begin to fumble, and then you just realize that they can't perform. So even those who have been employed, the initiative is not there. If you don't get there and say do ABC, when they get to work and the supervisor is not there or nobody, they can't take any initiative. They are sitting down and waiting. They are waiting for you to tell them go and do ABC. When they do that and they finish, that's all. They are sitting and waiting. You see, so they lack the initiative.
Thank you, Doc.
Yeah. So these are the things that we are talking about. So we don't expect it to be a one-day radical thing, but it should be a process as we are going through. So when you find yourself in the policy-making position, you should bring all these ideas up. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Okay. Any other comments?
Thank you, Doc.
All right.
I have another.
Yeah, you have other classes. Yeah.
I'll see you.
Yeah, good. So let's wind down, and then of course I'm always you can always get in touch if there are any issues. Anyway, so okay. So let's end the class here, and then we'll meet again next week. But then you can always get in touch. Okay. All right.